Well, howdy! This podcast is a proud member of the PodCon Go network. PodCon Go, family-friendly shows that are fun for everyone.
Welcome to Elderberry Tales. Grab your gloves and your weeding tools. It's time for a story. Today's story is The Geese and the Fig Tree, a story from the Panchatantra. In a part of the woods was a big fig tree with huge branches. A flock of geese lived there, and happy they were, you can be sure of that. But at the roots of the tree, a little vine was starting to grow. A wise old goose said,
"Do you see that little vine? The one starting to climb up our tree? It could be trouble someday. I saw this happen once when I was a little bird. If we do not pull the vine away now, when it is still small and easy to cut, over time it will grow bigger and thicker. Then one day the vine will be big and thick enough for someone to climb. A hunter will be able to climb the vine and kill us. And that is why," said the wise old goose, "we must get rid of the vine when we can." "Silly old goose," said the others. "What trouble can come from such a little vine? Things are not the same as they were when you were little."
So they let the vine grow. And it grew, and grew, and grew. When the geese were out one morning, catching bugs and little fish, a hunter saw the fig tree and the big, thick vine. Why, it was so big and thick, he could climb right up on the vine. So he climbed, and high up in the branches, he laid a net around the nests. Then he quietly climbed back down. "When I come back in the morning," he said on his way home, "I bet there will be a lot of geese caught in my net." That night, after a day of food and fun, the geese came back to their nests. Each and every one of them became stuck in the hunter's net.
"Why? Oh, why did this happen to us?" cried a goose. "Don't you remember?" said the wise old goose. "I told all of you this could happen when the vine was still small, but you did not believe me." "What do we do now?" cried another goose. "Aha!" said the wise old goose. "Our only hope is to play dead when that hunter comes back tomorrow. If he thinks we are all dead, he may throw us to the ground so he can take back his net. We must all stay very still until each one of us gets thrown out of the tree onto the ground."
At sunrise the next morning, the hunter came back. At first, he was very glad to see so many birds in his net in the fig tree. But when he got closer, he saw that every goose seemed as good as dead. He did not want dead geese. So one by one, he took them off his net and threw them onto the ground. The geese stayed very still on the ground until the very last goose was thrown onto the ground. Then the hunter climbed down the tree and left. When the geese could not see him anymore, they flew back up into the branches of their fig tree. The geese knew what they must do. It took a long time, but bit by bit, they pecked away at that big vine. First, they cut the big vine into lots of smaller pieces. Then they pecked away at each small piece until it broke from the tree. At last, every piece of vine fell to the ground, and the geese could fly up to live safely in their fig tree once again. Oh, what a smart old goose that was! In fact, sometimes this story is actually named after the goose. It's called The Wise Old Goose, or The Shrewd Old Gander. And you can see why. I mean, when that old goose first saw that little vine, he knew what was up. Why do you think the other geese ignored the warning? Have you ever been in a position where you could see trouble starting? When you noticed something, or when something happened and you thought to yourself, this might turn out badly. What do you do when you see trouble starting? Sometimes taking care of trouble is a lot of work. We would much rather ignore it and hope that it goes away or just takes care of itself. But just like that vine up around the fig tree, a little bit of trouble that we ignore could turn into a lot of trouble. Trouble that could be dangerous for us. Or even just trouble that's a lot more work to get rid of if we let it grow too big. This story comes from the Panchatantra. The Panchatantra is an ancient collection of fables and stories written in Sanskrit. And many of the stories deal with issues like this. They teach us things about life that are useful. They teach us about friendship, about being a good person, and about taking care of trouble before it gets too big. If you enjoyed this episode, you might want to look for some of the other stories from the Panchatantra that I've told here on this podcast. The Mice and the Elephants is one. The story of the doves and the hunter is another one. And I'll be on the lookout for more, because I think these are really great stories. I never heard them when I was a kid, so I'm grateful to be able to learn them as an adult and to share them with you. This version of The Geese and the Fig Tree was adapted by Elaine L. Lindy for the website Stories to Grow By. Thanks to the team at Stories to Grow By for making it possible for us to share so many of these stories with you. And thanks to you for listening to Elderberry Tales. I'll see you next week.